How we doing, everyone? So, this is going to be your second Keystone biology review video. Now, in the first one, we talked about kind of an overview of the test, and we also talked about graphing. So this time, I'm going to finish up our first part of Module 1, which is with basic biological principles. And what I'm going to go over with you today is the 7 characteristics of life. Some teachers say there's 8. I'm going to tell you there's 7 because I like to do grow and develop and reproduce as all one thing. Some people will do grow and develop as one and reproduce as another, okay? Doesn't matter which way you do it, you're still going to get the same knowledge that you need to know. Now, I'm going to start off with cells, but before I get that, let's talk about the coronavirus a little bit because it will relate to what we have to go over with cells. Now, we are starting to get away from the pandemic. We're starting to return to normal life. There's the vaccines out there that hopefully are doing their job, okay? But the big question is why did the pandemic happen and why were we unable to control it? Well, here's the big problem, and I'm not going to get real into it, but viruses, like the coronavirus, they're not considered living. So how do you kill something that's not even living in the first place, right? All the virus is essentially a protein coat with some kind of genetic material inside of it. Whether that genetic material was DNA or RNA, it's all different, okay, depending on the virus. But that's why a virus is so hard to kill, and it's also hard to come up with a good vaccine because they're not living, okay? So our first characteristic of life is we are going to have to made up of one or more cells. This is why viruses aren't living. They're not made up of one cell. Now, when we're talking about cells, I'm going to go over 4 vocab words that you need to know for cells. The first one, organisms can either be unicellular or they can be multicellular. If they are unicellular, they are made up of simply one cell. If they are multicellular, they are made up of 2 or more cells. Okay? We are all multicellular. We have more than one cell. Bacteria, archaea, things like that, they are going to be unicellular. They're only made up of one cell. Okay, so bacteria, unicellular, us, plants, funguses, all these types of things, all the different fungi out there, they're all multicellular. All right. Now, the other 2 vocab words that are important to go over for the Keystone, and I'm just going to touch on them here, and we're going to explore them a little bit more in a later video. But this is going to be prokaryotic cells. So a cell can either be a prokaryote or prokaryotic, or it can be a eukaryotic cell. Okay? Now here's the difference between them. In a prokaryotic cell, we are going to have a cell membrane. I'm going to draw this fairly small so I can draw my eukaryote as a good scale comparison. But we're going to have our prokaryotic cell. It's going to have a very simple design to it. They usually have some kind of whip-like structure in the back called flagella, and that helps it swim around. In the middle, it's going to have some DNA. It's just going to be chilling in there, okay? Nothing too fancy. For a eukaryotic cell, and I will go over the definitions, don't worry, after I'm done drawing my lovely, fabulous drawings here, but the eukaryotic cell, we are still going to have our cell membrane. Oh, look at that. I drew this one a little bit bigger than our prokaryotic cell, right? That's why I said I'm going to draw this small so I could draw it to scale. The eukaryotic cell is like 10 to 100 times bigger than the prokaryotic cell, so they're much bigger. Along with that, the eukaryotic cell is not going to have its DNA just floating throughout the whole area of the cell. Instead, they have this specialized structure called a nucleus, and the DNA is going to be nice, chilling, very protected inside of that nucleus, okay? So there's your difference between the cells. Along with this, if you notice, we got this DNA in here, and it's taking up a good bit of that cell, okay? There is room for some other things, but not too much. In our eukaryotic cell, we are going to have a bunch of other things all floating throughout the cell, okay? Things everywhere. all right? Again, like I said, I know I keep saying this, we'll go over those in a later video, and I'll go over each one individually with you. But here's our big difference. Our eukaryotic cell, it has a nucleus that stores the DNA. Our prokaryotic cell, this one here, it has no nucleus for storing our DNA. So there's your big difference, okay? Eukaryotic cells, bigger, have a nucleus to store that nice DNA. Prokaryotic cells, smaller, no nucleus, okay? All right. So we are done with cells now, okay? And again, guys, that was just a basic overview of cells. I'm going to have a whole video later on that is going to be a little bit more extensive and give you all the different cell parts and the differences between animal cells and plant cells and bacteria cells, okay? So, done with cells. Second one, levels of organization, okay? I'm going to go over our levels of organization. Those are the ones you're going to have to know for the Keystone. And plus, you know, it's us. Why not go over us? All right, we can relate to that pretty easily. So we are considered an organism. That is us. That is our body as a whole. If we wanted to break us down into parts, we would first break us down into organ systems. Okay? Break that down. Organ systems would break down into organs. We have all our individual organs. Break our organs down. We would have some tissues. Okay? Break the tissues down. Tissues are going to be made up of individual cells. And since we're talking about us, we are eukaryotic cells, like I said before. We are not prokaryotic cells like bacteria. We're eukaryotic. Break our cells down. We are going to be made up of all these tiny organs that make up cells called organelles. If we wanted to break that down, we could. We could break the organelles down into macromolecules and the macromolecules down into atoms. And that's pretty much us in a nutshell. We're a big collection of atoms neatly grouped together. Okay? But anyway, so a bunch of organelles, put them together, we get a cell. Put a bunch of cells together, we get a tissue. Put a bunch of tissues together, we get some organs. Put some organs together, okay? For example, easiest thing I can think of for putting organs together is take your esophagus, put that together with your stomach, your intestines, and your colon. That kind of sounded gross, but anyway, put all those organs together and we get an organ system. What's that organ system called? It's your digestive system, okay? Put a bunch of your organ systems together and we get you. Now, one more thing before I move on that I want to mention with this, guys, the cell. This is the smallest unit out of all of these. Cells are the smallest unit that are still considered living. Organelles are not considered living, okay? So cells, smallest unit that is still considered living. So that is all I've got to go over with levels of organization with you. Okay. Next one, real quick, respond to stimuli. This one is very easy. Whenever we have a stimulus is just something that triggers a response. So we have stimulus, and then that leads us to the response, okay? Whenever we're in class with my students, I always like to grab a roller or something, and while they're copying down their notes, go in the back of class and just slam the roller as hard as I can on the desk, and they all turn around like, oh my goodness, what's going on here, you know? I provided them with a stimulus, me taking the roller, whacking it off the desk. Their response is to, hey, jump, get scared, turn around, what are you doing, calm you now, that sort of thing, okay? Stimulus and response. Now, every single organism can respond to a stimuli. Let's talk about plants real quick. Can plants respond to a stimuli? Yeah, they can, in their best effort, okay? If we have the sun, and let's say the sun is over here for now, okay? We got our sun. All right? There's our sun. If we have a plant down here, all right, so there's a nice tree there. If the sun is shining down on the tree, if you've ever seen the plant move, you don't see that, okay? The tree is not going to get up and try to, oh, hey, the sun's over here. I'm going to move over here. It doesn't work like that, right? But it can do this, all right? It can shift its leaves so the leaves are all in the direction of the sun, okay? If we want to talk about flowers, sorry guys, I am no artist here, but that's horrible. I apologize. I can't draw flower petals. That is just wow. But anyway, what a flower can do, guys, is it'll actually, so take a mental image of that horrible picture there. It will actually bend toward, that one is even worse. My goodness, I am no artist by no means. But as the sun moves, if it's moving from east to west, the plant will actually move with the sun. The petals will go toward the sun so that it can gain that sunlight, okay? So that's how plants can respond to stimuli. Okay, next one, grow, develop, and reproduce. Let's talk about a species for this one. So we know if an organism is living, it can grow, it can develop into a more complex organism. But let's talk about reproduction. So what is a species? We can go from, like us, we're Homo sapiens. Homo is our genus name, sapien is our species name. So most of the time, only members of the same species can mate and reproduce. There are some weird exceptions to this, kind of like the donkey and the horse. They mate together, they form a mule. Now, they're a donkey and a horse, they're completely different species, okay? But they can make offspring. But here's the thing, that mule, that offspring that they produce, yeah, it can't reproduce. It is sterile, okay? So the mule really isn't a species because it cannot reproduce. No mule can reproduce. Same thing if you ever heard of like ligers. It's a male lion mating with a female tiger, and they just grow and grow and grow and grow until one day they die. But the male lion and the female tiger, if they reproduce in captivity, and it would only be in captivity because lions are from Africa and tigers are from Asia, two completely different continents, but that liger that would be the offspring is not able to reproduce. It once again is sterile, okay? So that's all I wanted to go over with that one, all right? Energy and metabolism. You need a constant supply of energy, all right? What do we use for energy? Now, when you guys eat some food, all right, you are going to eat a bunch of different things, but most of the food that you eat contains small molecules of glucose, aka sugar. When we eat glucose, when we eat sugar, our body is going to take in this glucose, our body is going to take in this sugar, and we are going to convert it so that it is able to fuel a molecule called ATP, all right? And we'll go over ATP in a little more depth in the macromolecule video, but ATP is the main molecule that our body uses for energy. We need a whole lot of ATP on a daily basis to keep our body running, okay? So we need a constant supply of energy, and that regulates or helps our metabolism, all the reactions that build things up in our body and all the reactions that break things down in our body. So our main source of energy is glucose or sugar, and our body's converted into a molecule called ATP. And just so you guys know, ATP stands for adenosine triphosphate. Again, we'll talk about that later in the macromolecule video. All right. Number six, we're going to spend some time on number 6. Maintain homeostasis. two things I want to talk about here, okay, is going to be temperature and pH, okay? When we are maintaining homeostasis, anytime you guys see the prefix homo or homeo, it means the same. So we want to maintain or keep the same internal conditions in our body. And like I said, let me talk about temperature and pH, okay? Temperature, we want our temperature to be at 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, okay? Is that the exact number? No, it's not, okay? My temperature is never, ever at 98.6 degrees. I'm nowhere near 98.6 degrees. I run at about like 96.5, and that's my normal. So 98.6 for me is, yeah, I'm starting to get sick, okay? So, yeah, this number hasn't been updated in many years, guys, and it kind of assumes that we are not doing this last thing, which we'll talk about in a minute. But temperature, we want our temperature to be at 98.6. If our temperature gets up to like 102, yeah, you're in some trouble. You're sick, okay? If your temperature gets up to 105, watch out. You're probably going to have heat stroke very soon. If your temperature gets up to 107 to 109, depending on the person, you're probably dead, okay? You died. So going up with your temperature is just as bad as going down. Go down, you get hypothermia, and you can die from being too cold. Right? Now, pH. Let's talk about pH. I'm going to show you the pH scale over here. It goes from 0 all the way to 14. 7 is in the middle. Okay? Now, with our pH scale, guys, our bodies, we want them to be fairly neutral, meaning it's going to be around a 7. What is neutral that we know of, that we drink every day? Well, it's water. On this side, this is going to be our acids. Okay? On this side, this is going to be our bases. Our strongest acids are going to be in this area, right here. Our strongest bases are going to be in this area right here. Okay? When we have strong acids, 0, 1, 2, these are things that are not going to be very good for us. Okay? Strong acids like sulfuric acid, battery acid, if you eat these, you are going to die. Okay? Simple as that. But around a 2, that's actually the acid in our stomach, and we're okay with that acid, being inside of us. We've developed so that that actually helps us digest food, okay? Strong bases, same thing. They're mostly like cleaning agents and stuff like that. You don't want to eat those. You will die, okay? Around 7 in the middle, this is where we want to be, all right? Around 6, around 5, these are things like soda pop and coffee and getting up a little higher, going to orange juice and stuff like that. So we can drink some things that are slightly acidic or slightly basic. They make water now that is alkaline water, meaning it is slightly basic. Usually it's 10 or lower. They're not going to give you like, hey, here's some 13 pH water, drink it. Yeah, that's not good for you, okay? But they found that you maintaining an alkaline body actually can help fight cancer, which is kind of cool. All right. So with maintaining homeostasis, guys, we want to maintain a pH of around 7. Okay. If not, we hope our body responds in order to get it back to 7. All right. And that's everything with maintaining homeostasis. We're also going to talk about enzymes with that. Okay. And I'll talk about enzymes in a later video. Again, I know I keep saying that. I apologize. All right. Last one here is going to be adaptations evolve over time. Now, with our adaptations, we want to evolve as humans. We want to have genetic variation. So genetic variation is things that are different in you than in other people. Okay. humans are really bad at this, all right? Because if you break your leg, yeah, we're going to take you to the hospital. We're going to put a cast on. You're going to be fine. Everything's going to be okay, all right? If you're a lion and you break your leg, you're done. You're dead, all right? They are not going to be like, here. One lion's going to be like, hey, Simba. Sorry, I used Simba. I apologize for that. But get on my back. You'll be just fine. And that lion's just going to take care of Simba the rest of their life. It doesn't work like that. Most of the time in the lion kingdom and their prides, that lion that is injured is going to go off on its own and it's going to die in peace. All right? So what's going to happen here, guys, is our adaptations, things that help us survive. Maybe the fastest lion. That fastest lion is going to reproduce more than the other ones, meaning the next generation of lions is going to have a faster genotype or a faster trait than the previous lions, meaning that fast trait is just going to keep going on from generations to generations, and hopefully by the end all the lions are going to be fast or even faster than that fast one. Okay, but anyway, guys, here are our 7 characteristics of life. That is it for our first part of module 1. Next time we are going to start water, and then we'll get into the macromolecules. Have a good rest of your day, everyone.